Everyone, welcome to another episode of Independent Artists Unite song series. I'm super psyched, not sewer, not sewer, super psyched to have from the beleaguered Los Angeles area, Mary Chicken Soup and Rice. Welcome.
Thank, thank you for having me, Scott.
How are things going over there? Are you
It's
in a
heavy.
danger zone or evacuation or?
No, on Wednesday night last week, I could see the fires from my back porch, the Hollywood Hills fires, the Sunset fires. The mood here is heavy, obviously shock,
Yeah, yeah.
depression, staggering, like the destruction to um, the land, and the people, whole communities. Pretty much everybody has somebody who's been affected by it firsthand. And it just is a heavy feeling of what the ramifications are for the world that we live in and what we can expect from the future. And then looking at all of the political vitriol and aggression and searching for responsibility, and it's nasty. It's just a nasty environment. The air is not, we're worried about the air to breathe, the water to drink.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that you take for granted, in disasters are kind of thrown up in the air. So yeah, it's been strange. I fortunately, my where I live was safe, but it got close. And I've had friends that obviously weren't so fortunate. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, it's interesting. I realized with this little show I do, the last couple episodes have like had this mental health kind of theme, which I didn't plan at all. And now I'm going into an LA theme. I have you today, and then I'm shooting another LA musician tomorrow. And it's funny how that's happened. But also, I feel like I kind of wanted, no, actually, first of all, shout out to Daifine from Washington, D.C., who turned me on to you. I don't know how he found you, but he said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this these guys?" And I played it right. We have a very similar like appreciation of music, and so I was like immediately thrilled when I listened to all your music and saw the visuals and everything like that, because I'm a big fan of also of all the influences that you list on your Spotify profile, like Bowie, Susie and the Banshees, and what was I forget what some other ones was, but they were all ones that were right up my right up my alley. But also, I also wanted to
Yeah.
just mention the passing of David Lynch, because I have been so affected by this, and for some reason, you seem like a very Lynchian character. To me, I could totally see you playing, at the Roadhouse or whatever in Twin Peaks or something. So I felt like it's a bit of an homage to yeah, just to the Lynchian aesthetic that's, I think, made its way into so much pop culture. The daring to be weird, right?
Mm. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you more about that exactly. And I did make when I lived in New York City, I was directing theater and acting in theater. And
Oh, okay.
when I moved, yeah, and when I left New York, I moved back home to Kansas City, and I started making films. I started making short films, and then in 2018, I made my first feature film, which is an independent horror film called Wretch. And it's very much influenced by David Lynch.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so if you ever get extraordinarily bored, feel free
Oh,
to watch
I
the
don't need to be
film.
bored. I'm there. I'm there. I don't need to be bored.
A very imperfect motion picture, but something that I endeavored to do, and there's a lot of it that I feel like I'm proud of, and a lot of it I'm still heartbroken over.
Well, I love imperfections. That's perhaps that's where the real beauty is. Who knows?
Well, then you're gonna love the film.
But yeah, I saw that you were a New York City transplant, which I was too. I was probably, well, not probably, most definitely an earlier. it was an earlier kind of version of what you did, but I was in New York for 22 years, about I guess from 89 to 2010. Um, but I did the whole like music scene there and also did acting and other kind of performance stuff.
Mm,
And then I
mm,
went out to LA in 2000. There was I think at the end of the Giuliani era or in the midst of the Giuliani era, I guess there was a lot of closing down of like cool nightlife places. He was really cracking down, wanted to get rid of the freaks and the drag queens and all these kinds of things, you know. And there was an exodus at that time for sure of people and kind of the downtown life that went to Hollywood. And so yeah, my band went out to Hollywood in 2000 to kind of uh, knock on fame's door, and I always say no one answered, but that's not quite true. But I also had a very serious drug problem, which is a
right.
perfect segue to your single, which I love, Always on the Drugs. Although I saw that when I was like looking at your Instagram page, I saw that it has the tagline at one point that were prescribed by your doctor, which is also kind of the kind of drugs I'm on today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. What would you like to know about the song you wanted to get into
yeah.
the
Well,
meat of it?
yeah. I mean, actually, before we do that, let's go a little bit about your, I mean, this is a classic story. We're not in Kansas anymore, to New York City, to Hollywood, So what I always admire people that are like, "Fuck this! I'm going to New York City" when they're a young person. It takes a lot of courage. So let's hear a bit about that story and your music idols growing up. That may,
Yeah, I
that may
mean,
that may have
music is all
inspired you. Yeah.
yeah, music has always been my absolute love. My Sesame Street 45s, that was kind of my indoctrination, like all of the music. So many of those. I would like to do a covers record someday of the songs from Sesame Street that are stuck in my head forever. Um, and I just had the thought the other day while I was driving around, which is when most of my musical thoughts happen, about doing a alphabet album and just doing like 90-second songs about every letter in the alphabet. That I could share with I don't have any kids, and but my brother and sister do.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be amazing for Uncle Matthew to create something that I could share with the kids, and a 90-second song about every letter in the alphabet. Oddly enough, I was having all these visions about touring on that record and making videos for everything, and I think it'd be really fun to give yourself parameters like that. But yeah, music, obviously, I always say to anyone who wants to hear that music is my favorite thing on the planet. I think it's my favorite thing that happens here. I also try to say that I have no idea what's happening here and I don't understand, but I try to be grateful. And I'm
Mm,
grateful that I've gotten to a place where I can feel that way.
mm,
Because I think a lot of our agonizing comes over trying to identify the truth of what's happening or
mm,
fighting over the reality of what's happening with somebody else's opinion. And I
mm,
think a reverential agnosticism is really important and peaceful.
mm,
And but it's taken a while to get there because I think if to even have that desire, you have to be free of addiction for one thing, and free of
mm.
like constant turmoil and torment. And yeah, I mean, I could jump ahead all over the place, Scott, but like I'll just say that musically, it was like Sesame Street, Def Leppard, Metallica, um, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Fugazi, Brian Eno, Susie and the Banshees, Gang of Four, Love and Rockets, Killing Joke, a lot of ambient music. Most of the music I listen to is like Left Field House or ambient electronic music. I don't often listen when I'm working to anything with words in it. I love ambient music, and part of my wellness routine now is bathing in ambient music. Like I
Mm.
need to get outside, and that's one of the beautiful things about living in Los Angeles, which I didn't appreciate till I moved here. How gorgeous the hills are and the hiking.
Mm.
And I mean,
Yeah.
hiking, you're not putting on boots and a backpack, but just like walk, getting altitude and
Yeah.
moving your heart.
Hmm.
I did a lot of damage to my heart earlier in life. I didn't respect my heart. I didn't respect myself, and I hurt my heart physically.
Mm.
And so I'm happy to have a heart that I can actually like walk up long inclines with now. And I quit smoking, I quit drinking years ago, which has been a big part of my. It's a daily affirmation.
Yeah.
When you don't feel great about yourself, it's easier to do things that are more harmful to yourself. And a lot of
Dude.
people don't feel like they deserve to feel good about themselves, which is why I love the musical container, because when we are in a show and we're in a performance, we are creating an extraordinary space,
Mm.
a non-ordinary state of consciousness, and it's a shared experience between me as the projector, and the audience is also projecting their attention, which is such a valuable, priceless
Mm.
asset,
Yeah.
and so it's been a long time. I'm getting ready to tour again in the spring, and I haven't toured extensively for a long time, but I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to do that again, because especially after the pandemic, when all live performance was taken away,
Mm.
and we couldn't be in community as we were used to and had taken for granted. Like I think these
Mm.
spaces, these live performance spaces are sacred spaces.
Mm.
They're definitely my places of worship, And
Yeah.
so every
Yeah.
show that I do, and this is just a one man band. There's no other band. I eventually it would be great to take a band with me on tour and to have people that wanted to play with me consistently. But I've just found that after all the bands I've been in and all the music I've made, this is something that I have the vision for it and I want to make
Mm.
it happen. And I'm just gonna have to do it myself. And so when I tour, it'll be me with guitar and vocals and backing tracks. But I think it works because I'm leaning more into the theater that I came up in.
Hmm.
And so incorporating the character, the wardrobe, the makeup, like it really helps access a space. And then live, the container is like a psychedelic seance. Like
Mm.
it's about like it's a spiritual vessel, it's a paranormal vessel. I
Mm.
always feel like Mary is a trickster interdimensional spirit that I'm
Yeah.
channeling. And when we had a little extra time this morning, so I went ahead and started to be open the channel. But when you get under the hot pink and orange and purple light and you get the
Uh,
sound going, that's where it really cracks into channeling the characters. So um
dude,
yeah.
I just have to tell you, I just need to pause you right now and just say, anyone that is watching this that knows me is freaking out as much as I am right now because our stories are so similar that it's almost dangerous. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means.
Don't hurt me, Scott. Don't hurt me. I want to come to
we
Denmark.
we are definitely brothers from another mother. This is some crazy shit. I'll explain. Please continue.
Well, I think that, I think that one thing that traumatic events do, like the pandemic and like this fire happening and these fires happening and the wars, I
Mm.
mean, anything that's traumatic that disrupts, but on a mass scale, um, it does bring to light how much people are enduring and agonizing over and suffering from. And
Mm.
I'm always going to put myself in the cringe category of saying the things and having the discussions that nobody wants to hear.
Mm.
For the last several years, I've been working in the psychedelic space also, and as you know, writing as a journalist and creating content. I do a podcast about psychedelics and non-ordinary consciousness. And the reason I'm into it is because I think that it's people working to identify the things that hold them back and make them hurt, and then consequently make other people hurt. because
Totally.
that's what happens when you're destructive on your own, then you hurt other people. And instead of just wringing our fists and writing or blowing up about things, doing work, coming in community, can be like really like healing and vulnerability, and those things get looked at and as if they're very impotent or cringy, but it's ferocious, man. Like to
Mm,
me, like that showing up in that way and like taking responsibility and taking authority and being empowered is not cheesy. It's really kick-ass and powerful. And even if it is cheesy, I mean, if somebody thinks it's cheesy, that's fine, but look what's possible. Like, I love communication. I'm grateful that I've been able to ride out some storms and come into being at a place where I feel like I can communicate. And music is still my favorite way to just distill down trillions of ideas into a little three minute burst and then say that. And then when it resonates, and that's why I want people to hear this stuff, because I make music because music has affected me so much forever. And I'm just trying to be a part of that symbiotic relationship. And
mm,
so I'm so thrilled to be able to have the chance to tour again and share performance in front of people. And I hope that when this record comes out, that people hear it. You know, I don't want it to be released into obscurity immediately. I want people to hear it. You know, I want to
mm,
hear what people think about it. I want people to interact with it. And I want to get back into doing this absolutely as much as possible. This is the first time I've ever done a solo project. I've always had bands, and it's always been that kind of give and take and that sort of like dependent on other people's
mm.
problems, joys, failures, successes to
Yeah,
work, you know,
yeah.
addictions. And
Hmm.
so this is a brave new world, and I'm grateful for you for paying attention to it, and your friend to refer, and anybody who sees this and checks out Mary Chicken Soup and Rice.
Yeah, man. Well, I think there are some like really awesome elements that you're putting together, I mean, the whole theatrical thing, um, it's like it's something that I did when I was, well, I still do, but I also did it when I was younger, but it was a little too derivative, I think. It was a little too like David Bowie, and I see yours as like influenced by these kind of theatrical rockers, but it's something uniquely your own, which I think is really cool. And and the music, I love the guitars sound like Mick Ronson of Ziggy Stardust, on guitar. With the harmony, those little tags that you're putting at the end of Always on the Drugs. I love that. And
Thank you.
but man, they're so catchy too. That's the thing. And that's like exactly where I mean, oh man, I don't know where to start. I could go on and on, but let me just say this. I also like came from this musical family, was raised on Jesus Christ Superstar, right? See, but I was the only boy, the youngest boy and then four girls. And so I sang both Jesus and Judas's part. Okay, so I kept paging Dr. Freud. And and then out of that, I had all these bands all these years and all this stuff too. And I was a total drug addict. I was a total alcoholic from 12 years old, then a cocaine addict, then a heroin addict. In the end, somehow got sober, haven't drank or done drugs for a little over 20 years now. And
Congratulations, man. It's
yeah,
awesome.
thanks. And meanwhile, I also had done damage to my heart. And 5 years ago, I had a heart attack.
Mm.
My heart stopped for over 40 minutes. It was like really, so that was a whole like near death experience thing, and realizing, oh wow, I'm not indestructible, and I've done damage to my heart too, So anyway, it's crazy the link ups that I'm hearing when you speak. I really identify with what you're saying. It is also my first um foray into like doing things myself too with music, without a band and stuff. Although I haven't gone into the doing stuff live, and you may inspire me to do it, to get back on stage. I tell you, because I'm so inspired hearing you talk, because it really is important, man. These spaces that you talk about, I talk a lot with people on here about how important this community is, on Instagram, just like the kind of dark, music community. and how supportive it is, and how you know how it feels good just on a virtual level, and it'd be great to feel that live again. And I'm not going to bore you with my Daniel Ash from Love and Rocket story. I'm not going to bore the people that watch this show because I think I've already told the story twice, but I'll have to tell you after we stop recording.
Okay, fair
Because
enough.
if you're a Love and Rockets fan, you'll really appreciate it. When I first came to Hollywood and ended up hanging out with Daniel Ash, craziness. Um, yeah, man. Um, but let's get into Always on the Drugs. How did that song come about? And yeah, talk a little bit more about the creative process of Always on the Drugs.
Thank you. I was Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar in high school too, by
Oh
the
my
way.
God, dude, this is crazy.
Yeah. Uh,
This is crazy.
um, so
I'm like,
always
it's like that Will Ferrell and John Cena. Do we just become best friends? Did you see that movie, Step Brothers?
Step Brothers, yeah. I've been in a Tim and Eric wormhole recently with Dr. Steve Brule. Yeah, John C. Riley's amazing. Always on the Drugs um, really was a more I took more of a concerted effort to actually have a purpose and meaning behind that particular song than I
Mm,
often sort of force myself to do. I usually consider it all sort of channeling and seeing what kind of comes out and not necessarily having to have it say or mean one particular thing, but maybe have shards of meaning or energy or conceptual relevance along the way.
mm,
But Always in the Drugs was written very purposefully to explore this conundrum of being addicted to antidepressant medication.
mm.
And when I say addicted, I mean not able to stop without dire consequence. And also,
Dude,
there's no, well,
I'm
dude,
so with you.
I could
I'm
say
so with
so.
you, dude.
Yeah, I guess I'll just have to like try to go ahead and say I don't want to be tactless and ramble too much, but I think it's a problem. I think that the way that we prescribe antidepressant medication, the way that well, first of all, the way that we are inept of dealing with mental health issues, the way that we
Yeah, yeah,
separate mental health from physical health, it's
hmm,
absurd because it's all the same thing.
yeah,
And at some point, it was differentiated by the medical industrial complex and psychiatry, and it's become a really inept system of dealing with the psyche soul. It's the
mm,
hardest work. It's the most intense work, and all they do is they flippantly put something into you, and then they keep turning the lever to cash in for
mm,
years.
yeah,
There's no support structure in place to help people come off of prescription
yeah,
antidepressant medication, and it can be life-threatening to do that. People can be wrecked from trying to come off of prescription antidepressant medication too fast or without oversight. And the oversight that is available is a joke
yeah,
for mostly
yeah,
different clinicians, different healthcare providers will tell you. I mean, first of all, I understand that I'm fortunate enough to live in a place on the planet where I have healthcare options and
yeah,
where I'm able to go somewhere and be seen and treated for something. But mental health specifically, and it comes from my story because when I was a kid, I had some stuff happen and I didn't understand the ramifications of it, and
mm,
processing it was rough. And this is not I'm not the only person in this position, but so I'm speaking I guess in part for
no, I'm
anybody
not.
who's familiar with this kind of terrain.
I'm
But
right with
like
you. Same with me
when
else as well. Yeah.
yeah, when especially when you're a kid, when stuff happens while your mind is forming, while your cosmology is forming, while everything's still coming into focus, and you
Yeah.
get traumatized and thrown off,
It's very damaging.
we're not equipped. We're not
Mm,
equipped to handle it socially. We don't have people that sit and I know people get pissed off with this term, but I still care about it. Hold space for you. We don't have
hmm,
like elders that will detach from their own ego or their need for things to be a certain way and just hear what you're going through. Just
Hmm.
listen to what you're going through and try to understand, empathize, and then maybe seek like good solutions and good routes to recovery.
Yeah.
Because the shit that happens to people is really fucked up all
Yeah.
over the place all the time, and it's hard to process, right? That's why a lot of people turn to music, this alchemy that we engage in, because it actually takes a feeling and an experience, and it can process it into a sound and something other people can relate to. And it's a beautiful, life-affirming thing in the face of some really life denying impulses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So it's this system. Not only is it like antidepressant medication, but it's also the opioid crisis too. And having seen people be prescribed opioids at 16, 15, 17, and then have that develop into full blown addiction,
Mm.
unchecked, out of control, because at the genesis point, nobody like laid out a plan that said, we're going to introduce your young mind to these powerful psychotropic agents.
Yeah.
And then we're not going to follow up with you in any kind of comprehensive, soulful, meaningful way. We're going
Yeah.
to let you fend for yourself. I know it's different. I know opioids are not the same thing as like SSRIs, but so in my case, it was SSRI
Well, yeah.
medication
Yeah.
prescribed in a cavalier manner, and
It is in many
and
ways
then
because
it
they're both kind of band-aid, band-aids on symptoms as well, instead of going for the root cause of something.
I
If you
mean
got
the
if
the
you got onto opioids because of, pain, lower back pain or something like that. I know a lot of people just take them recreationally as well, but they're
well, but the
also
whole the
treating
whole
psychological pain.
yeah, the whole root cause discussion is like very nuanced and very complicated and unique to everybody. But as an establishment, I'll just say there's a high likelihood that once you start taking a medication, there's really no regard for you ever having to stop. So you're always on
Mm,
the drugs.
yeah.
And so the situation for me has been prescribed and then left to figure it out on your own.
Mm,
And I, it gets to a point where you don't know if you're having your own thoughts. Are they affected by medication? What's the real? I mean, it's not like you take it like a Tylenol and your headache goes away and you know that there's some kind of function that's occurring.
yeah.
It's at a certain point, it's what's it even doing? All I know about it is if I stop taking it, I get really sick.
Yeah. And
And
and nobody knows
there's
even how they work. That's what I found out this
yeah, yeah,
past year. I'm like, nobody
the
even know,
whole
even with SSRIs, they have a theory of how it works, but they don't really know why they work or what the mechanism is.
right,
It's scary,
right.
yeah. Yeah, but
Yeah, and a lot of
I tried to get off antidepressants like 7 times in the last year, and it with like various hideous results, Like what happened with me ultimately is this anger happens, and it's not an anger, it's not like a ground zero that I started from. Like I was super, super angry, then I went on antidepressants, and then I go off them and I return to anger. It's like it's a reaction to the it's a reaction to going off. Like it's a withdrawal reaction. And this anger surge comes, and I just like, when it's if it's between like being an angry idiot like with my kids and myself and everyone I love, I just take them again. I'll be like, oh no, I'm I'm just gonna be always on the drugs. I don't want to be that person.
yeah, thanks for sharing that. I mean, I will say that so for me, I was prescribed very quickly. I mean, this was in a period of trying to reconcile what had happened in high school
Mm,
by seeking, I mean, just by depression happened, you know what I mean?
mhm.
Depression and anxiety and that's what we call it, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
what I
yeah.
was experiencing were the symptoms of that at 18, 17, 18, 19. And then eventually it was affecting my life so much that I had to go to a doctor and say, I'm coming home and I'm crying for no reason. I don't understand what's going on. And
Mm,
nobody said, all right, I'm going to schedule time with you and we're going to sit down and we're going to look at what's occurred in your life
Yeah.
and we're going to think about, some of these impacts and then we're going to look at what you're putting in you, how you're sleeping, what you're doing with your mind,
Yeah.
who are your relationships, what are they like? I mean, maybe that's a psychologist,
Mm.
but I don't think it's just a psychologist. I think it's part of a community that can make people healthier. But I was prescribed uh, medication quickly. And then, by quickly, I mean I was in a clinic for half an hour, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you have this, and this is what you need to take." And so I figured, okay, it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, and
Let's try
it's something I
this.
have.
Yeah.
It's something I have. But then I took it, and then you move to a different city, or you see a different doctor, and they're just like, "Oh, are you taking any medications?" They never say, how long have you been taking this? What do you think about the effects that it's having? How is it affecting your life? Do you believe that it's a benefit? Have you considered coming off? It's not that because they keep cashing out. Every
Mm.
time they rewrite that script, there's some kind of kickback. I don't know how it works.
Hmm.
That's what I'm presuming, but the
Hmm.
nope, it's in no vested interest
Of the
to have
patient.
you
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
Well, it's incentivized for you to be on medication forever. So I thought I was sick. I have something. I need to take something for it. And so forever I did that.
Mm.
Forever. I mean, for 20 years.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I started working in the psychedelic space and learning more about scientists who are working with the mind and the soul
Mm.
and how these problems manifest and things that can alternative methods of healing and wellness. And
Yeah.
I mean, because I think getting sober was a huge part of actually believing that I was worth working on,
Hmm. Hmm.
I like it's a kind of chicken and egg sort of thing, but no pun intended. But it was you had to find that motivation, but it's hard to find that motivation when you're in the throes of all of it. I'm just fortunate that I did. I mean, it got bad enough to where I had to, right? So
Yeah.
I
No, but
did,
that's the
and
miracle. Somehow you feel lousy about yourself still, but you have some glimmer of hope of like that glimmer of hope, like enough to go on that you feel like you deserve to survive, and that's the miracle whenever someone gets sober to me. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I think it wasn't until much later where I really started thinking maybe it's not maybe I can try to live life without being on this medication. The effect on me, I no longer understand,
Mm.
and Um, but then talking to medical care providers about how to stop was very disillusioning because
Mm.
no one really has good advice and it's all over the place. Like, oh, take
Mm.
one pill every other day for 2 weeks and you'll be fine. Like, I've been on it for 20 years.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then when you do, you start to get head zaps or you get sick or your moods become,
Mm.
it's
Oh.
crazy. So to me, it's like
Whew.
potentially
Yeah.
it's just sad. Whatever it is, it's sad. And
Plus, you're not the same
so
person you were 20 years ago, and you've developed
no,
spiritually and you're a whole different being and you're like, why am I taking the same shit?
I did interview a psychiatrist recently, someone who I really like on my podcast, and she said something that was encouraging for me. She said, you, everything about you changes over. So
Mm.
so after so many years, like you recycle everything, your cells and it's
Right.
all like different. So you can consider that you haven't been on it for 20 years, maybe you've been on it for 5 years or
Oh,
7 years or
interesting. Yeah,
something
yeah.
a little bit more, like or 2 months. But I think ultimately I'm proud that I have been able to taper in a responsible manner by trying to augment with supplements and food and different aspects of living.
Mm.
And I want to help provide more resources for people who not only need help with prescription medication cessation, but also spaces to explore consciousness and have discussions that are hard to have with family and friends sometimes. So that's
Mm.
part of what I do with this other podcast and this other web stuff I do, which is unrelated
Yeah.
to the music. Although I'm trying to integrate more of the
I
music, but
love
I
that, man.
do.
Yeah.
I just consider music to be medicine entirely. And I think that people know that. And I think that's why it's always been such a huge part of free cultures where music can
Hmm.
be, it is, it's transformative. It opens
Hmm.
up a space that's interdimensional. It's a sacred act. And from the scuzziest punk band to like the most revered like gamelan ensemble, like it's all like interdimensional. It's
Mm,
all like lifting up the veil and special stuff happens with music.
totally, man. You know what? We're gonna get cut off unbelievably because I only have a half hour on Zoom. But when
Sure.
let me
Sorry.
know. But is this is so you're gonna keep putting out singles for a while, and then it's gonna be an album that comes out on a label, or
Oh, so
what's
so
the
so the
Mary
full-length
Chicken Soup
album.
Rice plan? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we'll do the full-length record is supposed to come out February 7th on Clearly Records. I think it's Bandcamp
Oh,
Friday,
okay.
although
Oh,
it might get
awesome.
pushed back, but there's a whole record. It's 11 songs and
Oh,
it's ready
cool.
to go. I've put out
Oh,
two
I'm so
singles before
excited, man.
this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I put out two singles before this, Unknown Origins and As Life Was to Life, and then
Yeah, yeah. I
I might
love
do
those two,
one
by the way. Yeah.
more. Thank you. Thank you. I might do one more single before the record comes out, but I don't know if we'll have time. The record date could be pushed, but it's old friends from New York City that are releasing the record. And then, like I said, I'm very fortunate to have the chance to tour. Wonderful booking agent named Sean Padilla at Happy Nomad Booking has been setting up West Coast. And I want to come to Europe. I've never had a chance to take my music overseas. So if any of your
Yeah,
watchers and viewers or
totally.
community are bookers, I want to make it happen.
Yeah, I have an idea about that too that we'll have to talk about. Yeah. But oh
Cool.
man,
I
so
appreciate
so
you
so these singles
caring
are
about the
gonna,
music.
but these singles are gonna be on the album, the ones you put out
Yes, sir.
already? Okay, cool, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, they're on the
Oh
record.
man,
Yeah.
I love what you do, man, and I'm with you 1,000% on everything that you're talking about, man. So yeah, count me as a fan and an ally.
Thanks, man.
For sure,
Scott,
man.
I think this the sound of the music is taking, like you said, bits of everything that I've ever been influenced by or affected, but it's really when I feel it, it's pink and purple and orange. It's
Yeah,
dusky, it's paranormal, it's alchemical, and I'm just trying to I'm trying to create a feeling, so
yeah,
it's
man.
like all the heavy metal, all of the gothy stuff, all of the pop stuff, all of the rock stuff, everything's just in there and it's stewing around and then through that, if I can get some words that have some play to it and something inspiring or provocative, like that's what it is. And
Yeah,
I
man.
just love it. I'm
Well,
grateful to
but
have the chance to play music.
it's catchy too, man. That's the thing. It's also catchy. There's like, there's a real pop song sensibility in there. Because without that, who's going to listen, So I think it's a very clever part of it. And
I think there's hooks in everything, man. I hear hooks all
yeah,
over the place. I love language. I love communicating, and it's all hooks to me.
yeah. Wonderful, man. Well, we're gonna get cut off here. I'm sad to say because I would love to just keep talking and talking and talking. Or maybe I can call you on Instagram afterwards. Can I do
Yeah,
that?
we'll visit again. Yeah, we can do that
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. But thanks
Okay.
for being on the show, and please come on again when the album comes out, man. We'll talk. We'll talk again.
Thank you, Scott.
So nice to meet you. Yeah.
All right. Nice to meet everybody else.